Hey everyone, welcome to another fantastic show of Handing the Shame Back, a channel dedicated 100% to the adult survivors of child sexual abuse here in Aotearoa and globally. Very grateful to all you people who have been with us from the beginning and those who have newly joined, welcome on board. This is always a show that requires a trigger warning. So the reason we do that is I don't want you feeling upset and concerned and triggered. If you start to feel any of those things, please do switch off, go to the show notes below and you'll be guided to help and support. But in the meantime, I've got a wonderful guest for you today. His name is Phill. He's part of where I am in the beautiful country of New Zealand, and he's a dad, he's a survivor, and he's a very strong advocate for truth. And so here is Phill, and here is his story. Welcome to you, Phill.
Hi, welcome. Thank you, Gloria. Cheers. Good to be here.
Yeah, awesome. And what part of New Zealand are you currently in?
I'm in the gorgeous Tasman region, Motueka. Just
Oh,
parked up on the beach here, looking out at the beautiful sea. It's a lovely day. Beautiful, warm day.
fantastic. Hey, welcome. It's so lovely to meet you. We,
Thank you.
as you and I know, we've been doing a little bit of chatting on and off over the past few weeks, and I know you have quite a story to tell. And the reason I ask for your child sexual abuse history, Phill, is simply that others who may be listening may get something you say and have it help them enormously.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
with that being said, are you able, please, to give us a bit of your history, as much as you're comfortable with?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done this a few times now, done a few interviews. And so in 2008, I gave evidence to police in Sydney, which was my school at the time, Knox Grammar School, was being investigated for a pedophile ring. Well, it became that soon after discoveries, investigations, that was what was discovered. There was a pedophile ring that wasn't just at that school, but at many schools throughout Sydney, and international links around the world. I went to school with people from Hollywood and links with those families there, and in the school there. So it was quite a few famous people I went to school with, who became famous later on. So there was definitely links to very powerful elite sort of networks of power and structures. So the evidence I gave basically started up what became Australia's biggest criminal investigation in history, and those investigations spread worldwide, and opened up investigations all throughout the planet, and that was a bit mind-boggling for me at the time, of course. So I was just trying to still deal with my own own stuff, let alone realizing that I've opened up a big can of worms, and, but a very necessary big can of worms that really had to be exposed. And so that's been my thing since, is exposing this network of evil that it is, and what I've discovered, and the people I've met along the way, and the other survivors, and stories from other people who are still in hiding and still live in fear of what they know. And it's time now in the world to get this all out and have it exposed for what it really is. And it's dark and as awful as you can imagine. I couldn't even imagine, to be honest. I mean, if you know, yeah, I think it's very difficult for people to get their head around the awful possibility of truth that exists, and
Yeah.
it's been a real struggle trying to get people to realize that.
Well, thank you so much for being prepared to share this. Look, as we know, other amazing survivors watching this will be helped. I'm sure of it. So, Phill, you said it was a massive paedophile ring through Australia, across the world.
Yep.
What was the name of the investigation? Can you remember? It,
Oh,
it'll
oh,
probably be well documented, I would say.
yeah, it's definitely it is. Can't remember at the time now. It was 2008, so the original investigation was just a small team of police which I was working with, and then that just exploded, and it went from my school to 40 schools, um, and tens of thousands of people coming forward. It was just insane.
Yeah.
Police told me that they said they'd had 80,000 applications of complaints at one point after about 2 years, I think the second year in or something like that. And that's when they decided to open the Royal Commission. And so what happened then is the Royal Commission started and everything went on hold for 5 years while the Royal Commission went down. But that's something I wanted to bring to the light as well. And things I've recently discovered, which is, just makes my head, you know, you won't believe it. I mean, it's just bizarre what's been going on. So the Royal Commission was started in 2010 or 11, somewhere like that. Can't remember the exact date. And so the original school that was investigated, which was my school, Knox Grammar School, and then there was 40 other schools. So the Royal Commission was started by Judge Woods. And so I only just recently found out that Judge Woods went to Knox Grammar School. So if if a school's been investigated for such crimes, would you put a judge into a royal commission that went to that school? Is that not a conflict of interest? Surely.
100%. 100%.
It was never mentioned in the news. It's never been mentioned in the news. It's never been mentioned in any media. But some people have tracked back these people and traced them back and found out they went to school there. So, and here's another thing. My lawyers that did the class action, they went to the same school too. And I thought that was sort of good for me when they told me this, and they said, and they knew the abuser, the pedophile, the predator. They knew him personally as well through the years, with being in the links to the school and the rugby and all this sort of stuff. And so they told me they're going to get him and all sorts of things like this. And yeah, well, my court case took years, many, many years. And when I got to the point of being just so upset and so, I honestly felt like I was getting mucked around and I wasn't, like I was just being bounced around until hopefully I top myself. It's honestly what it felt like, because people were. I knew of other people that were going through the same process as me from the school that didn't make it. And I don't know exactly what happened to them, but I can probably guess, they didn't make it because they were tortured all the way along from years of going through all this crap, So when I just lost it. My lawyers one day rang him up, said, I'm done with this. I'm over it. I'm had it. I'm going to the media and I'm going to say everything I know, everything. And they said, well, we have to be careful. There's other court cases and there's sensitivities and blah, 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 blah. And they gave me all this crap. And then they said, we'll get a media person for you who's the right media person, and he can portray this in the right way without affecting other people's court cases and stuff like that. Guess what school he went to?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow. Is
They're all
this
in the same club. It's the club. It's a club.
So, Phil, just for context, you
Yeah.
were at the school. How old were you when the abuse started, and what were there? What did it involve? Was it more than one teacher? Was it a group of
Yeah.
teachers? Like how old?
There,
A bit of
I was 12, I think, 11 or 12 when I started
yeah,
school there. I think I turned 12 when I was there.
yeah.
Um, yeah, 12 or 13. It started basically from day one. We're
Okay.
picked out, and some of us, and there was definitely some of us picked out that sort of came from homes that were there was some troubles and things like this, or there was problems already. So I had some, normal, I suppose, issues as a teenager does, and um, they used that against me. I suppose yeah. I noticed that they picked out uh, children that basically had family problems or something issues going on at home. So they knew they wouldn't talk to anybody at home.
So that's interesting because you've just highlighted what grooming looks like
Yeah,
in a
that's
setting like that. And there's so many beautiful survivors I've had the honour of speaking with who have basically described a little of what you are, which is,
mm,
you know, a little isolated, issues at home,
mm,
and obviously clearly targeted, Phil,
day one. Yeah,
from day one.
yeah. I know it now, looking back at it, and I tell you now, most of the teachers that were around us were pedophiles.
Yeah.
Most of them, yeah, we were just surrounded by them, absolutely surrounded. I remember there was one that used to come in and always be in the shower duty. He'd always come in and watch us shower, like just creepy. He died before there was any, you think, before he had any charges. And here's another thing: the man that abused me, um, Adrian Nisbet, got a new passport and identification. Was out of the country in 2 weeks after getting charged. So he got out of the country. We don't know how, but that's obviously how what sort of person gets a new passport in 2 weeks? Like who is he? You know what I mean? How much does he know? I tell you, he knows a lot because he's been he lived at the school campus for 49 years. Mm.
So there'll be a lot of other victims and survivors out there, yeah.
So many, yeah, yeah.
Were you
So
there for all of your college years, or were you just there for a few years? How long were you
yeah,
there?
I was there for 4 years. Um, yeah, of course, I tend to be, like I just rebelled terribly, ran away from the school a few times, and I boarded there, and eventually my mum knew something wasn't right. And here's something that triggered my mother was that she went up to see the school nurse that looked after the boarding school boys, and she pulled mum aside and shut all the curtains and said to my mother, "There's something very seriously wrong with this school, and you need to get your boy out of here." And that's dead. And you know, that's what got me out of there.
Oh, Phil.
That beautiful woman, that sister, that was too afraid to speak out, but she saved me in some way there with my mum.
Mm, that's
Yeah,
beautiful. That's just beautiful, eh?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, we didn't still know then. You know what I mean? And mum just thought it was maybe bullying or something was something like that. But she said she always felt there was something really seriously wrong with the school and something really seriously wrong with me being there. And so she always felt like she needed to get me out. And, so yeah, it was
Whoa.
been very hard on mum, this whole process, the last few years. I honor my mum for what she's been through and with me in this. And I thank her so much. She's a beautiful woman, and she didn't know And she said herself, she didn't even know what the word pedophile meant back in those days. No one even knew the word, So I don't, you can't blame parents or people that, back then of not knowing, because you just wouldn't have expected that in a million years. You just don't. You just didn't. Yeah.
And it's so powerful, and I'm so grateful that you've got such a beautiful mum, and your relationship is so special. And for our amazing survivor family watching, for some of you, you will have had an experience where you were believed and supported by parents, and that's amazing. For some of us, that wasn't happening or likely to. However, the point being, it does show us, doesn't it, that as children, we're never going to willingly speak out.
No, that's right. No, I never did. And I kept that to myself for all my life and didn't know right up until the conversations with the police in 2008 over the phone that I was, a victim of this. I just sort of blocked it out so much, and, went about my life destroying myself, really. The classic signs of being abused, like as my therapist said, he says, you had the stick, it was beaten with you, and then when you left the school, you took that stick with you and kept hitting yourself with it,
Well, that's what we do, and that's another gem. Thank you so much, Phill, because as survivors, what we do, we've been so badly abused, we then continue the abuse, except it's self-abuse. And unfortunately, society tends to label us as the problems and the ones with the mental health issues and the ones who are filling our prisons and mental health facilities and rehabs. But you and I both know that the truth is, because the truth was unacceptable, that is why we did what we did.
That's right.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's not easy to be well adjusted in a world that's quite sick. It's something I heard recently, which it gives me a little bit of comfort that, because, I've tried so hard to get it together and get my life together. And I'm like, oh shit, well, yeah, how can you in a world that's so destructive and toxic,
Well, you're doing amazing. You're amazing, man. So for you, of course, you were not only experiencing all of this yourself for 4 years, but you also had your wonderful buddies and mates around you who you witnessed that happening to as well. And I wonder for you, how did that work in terms of what your feelings were around it and what happened?
What was that? Sorry, that last question then?
Well, sometimes it can be harder for us to see people we love being hurt. It can be harder for us to observe that than to have it happen to ourselves. So I wonder how you manage that.
I've spent a lot of time working on myself. I think when this all happened, it's gone a long. It's 11 years now, well, 15 years now since 2008, and it hasn't stopped for me. It's still going on. You know what I mean? I got a payout in 2019 from the school and the church, and that felt like the end of it, to me. And it was in 2019, but that was like 8 months before COVID hit. And I knew then straight away when that happened that there was all the investigations around the world were put on hold, and then they were closed down. So,
Well,
including,
how convenient.
yeah, I know. So, it's yeah. There's no coincidences with this at all, And I knew straight away when that happened that there was something dark and sinister behind this, because the biggest in criminal investigations in human history were underway around the whole entire planet. Bigger than anything that's ever happened in the entire world was going down. And then we had this big distraction. And a lot of these investigations have been closed down, including mine. I had the police, I think it was 2021, I think they sent me an email. They were still trying to get him up until 2020. I was still getting emails about them trying to get him back to Australia to face charges. Oh yeah, so back, I think in after the Royal Commission, I heard from the police and they had found him. He was running an orphanage in South Africa. Yep. And so I think they attempted to have him arrested then, and he disappeared again. He was notified, of course. He gets notified all the time. He probably got that job because of who he is and where he came from. And so he went on the run again. He went to Namibia. Namibia doesn't have any extradition orders with Australia and other countries, and I believe it's a pedophile protecting country. He's got a lot of wealth, so he's bought himself over there a cheetah farm and runs a cheetah farm, would you believe? And he just wrote a book and had it publicized, and he's just living his life like normal, and it's just, yeah, it's quite sickening.
It's disgusting. What's his actual name now?
Yeah, it's still Adrian Nisbet.
Adrian Nisbet. So survivors watching, Google that animal.
Yeah.
Phill, how is that for you, knowing that he's just living his life and you have to experience what you have to as a result of his abuse and pedophilia? How does
It's
that?
the most difficult thing to live with sometimes, and then other times I've had to challenge my life in so many ways I never expected I'd have to, and that is one, living with what I know, and living every day with with what I know, and that's not easy at all, because I'm surrounded by people in the freedom groups and things like this, and people are still distracted by everything else, not concentrating on what really should be the biggest issue of all. And so it's the most difficult thing to live with, and I work so hard at trying to just focus on being normal and as much as I possibly can, like just going to work and doing my job. And I'm a builder by trade. I love going and working, and it's wonderful. It distracts me from I can concentrate on that, and I don't have to think about all these other things. It's a fairly demanding job, and I like it, and it's good for me. I didn't work for a long time when I was going through all that, and I don't think that was good for me. But yeah, I've got an amazing support network of people around me, though, that care about me and know what I've been through, and they care deeply what I've been through.
Well, that's phenomenal. And I just want to take you back to something you said. This is the biggest issue in our country, and I'm going to say globally, this child sexual abuse.
Totally. Absolutely.
I call it the silent endemic because no one wants to talk about it.
I know. And that's so frustrating to live with.
Well, even more, Phill, I believe that because no one wants to discuss it, it suits the pedophiles and it suits the abusers, because as we know, some of them are in very highly connected places.
Yeah.
And they manage to shut down normal people like you and I who have experienced their abuse.
Yes.
And so what happens is we then get labelled all these names, like deluded or lying or evil or the black sheep or always in trouble or attention seeking. You've
Yeah.
got a few of them, I imagine.
Yeah.
And so what happens is it's a really clever distraction, because it then takes the onus or the focus off the abuser.
Yeah.
And they're very good at doing this. But the reality remains, we lead the world in child sexual abuse statistics. We lead the world per
Really?
capita. Yes. And the point being that if there's an unwillingness for most good people to hear about this, because as you said right at the beginning, it's so uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
What these wonderful good people, some of who will be watching, don't realize is you're giving a free pass to the abusers to continue.
That's right. That's right. Well, I've been saying to everybody for a long time now, they got where they are now and as powerful as they did because we refused to believe they existed.
Yes, that's a wonderful, wonderful point you raised. Can you say that again? They got...
They exist and have become as powerful as they have because people refuse to believe they existed.
That's really important.
Yeah, and it's still going on, and it's and even now people are going, okay, yes, possibly they do exist, but then they still can't get their head around it. And I get that. I actually do now, and I'm not so angry at people anymore about it. It took me a long time to let that one go. But I do understand it's so almost unbelievable.
Yes, but Phill, it's not
Yeah.
so much, and whatever we feel, whether it's anger or sadness or frustration or just absolute apathy, whatever we feel, we're meant to feel. So give yourself permission, please, beautiful survivor that you are, to feel whatever you need to.
Yeah.
But equally, I'm feeling more and more that it's coming time, non-survivors, to start actually facing this. Yes,
Yes.
it's uncomfortable to hear about, but you didn't experience it.
Yeah.
You're hearing about it. And the thing is, if we don't start having and normalizing these conversations, Phill, what happens is the abusers rub their hands with glee and they
Yeah.
carry on. So
I know. And it's so hard knowing what we know and it's going on every day still. You know, it's that's really difficult. You know, I just want to sometimes just get in a crowded place somewhere and just scream at everybody, you know.
you
Literally just go, can't you see what's going on?
right behind you. But I understand that.
I'd probably get locked up, eh?
Oh well, at least they'll feed you. No, please. Look, I think we've got to hold the hope. I think there's more and more of us speaking out, and I think there's more and more of us not prepared to quietly stay in the shadows. And so partly this channel, Handing the Shame Back, is designed so that people can hand the shame back, because it didn't belong to us.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing here. This is amazing. And I'm so pleased that you're doing this and other people are doing amazing things. And I'm continuing to doing what I'm doing and that's doing interviews and telling my story. I just got to keep telling my story. That's all I know I've got to do.
100%. So,
Yeah.
Phill, in regard to you and what kind of helped you once you started facing into the trauma of this as an adult, what actually helped you?
I got a lot of help from an organisation that were dedicated to justice sexual abuse victims. I spent close to maybe, I think, 8 years on and off with the one counsellor through that. And she guided me right through the whole court process and everything, and just amazing, amazing, beautiful woman. She retired after working with me, and I honour Mary very much for the beautiful work that she's done and helped me through, and got me to where I am, and got me to the courts, and got me to the interviews and things I needed to do. And yeah, and bless her beautiful soul. And I don't need to say any more about who she is or what she is, but that's, yeah. If she watches this, that's what I'm hoping. So, and I know she's dedicated to the truth as well. So, yeah. There's a lot of people I'm very grateful for that have got me through what I've been through. My mum and my son, definitely my two biggest supporters. It's been difficult because my son was, you see, to start with, when I first went through all that, I didn't tell any of my family. So for 7 years, I actually kept it quiet. And even with the Royal Commission, and even when people were saying to me, "Isn't that your school being investigated?" and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." you know, I just didn't know how to tell people. I couldn't, I didn't even know how to tell myself or work it out in my own head. So it took a long time for me to get through that process. And when I finally did tell people, that felt better. And but it didn't go down very well either in places. So I remember I got physically attacked about 3 times from telling people.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. There were men, which I now realise that they were possibly had been abused themselves, I'd say, because the way they reacted was like that. Like, yeah, I was bringing something up to their surface.
Well,
And,
yeah. Well, so clearly what helped you was counselling and seeking therapeutic help, and also being able to talk to people,
talk,
so releasing that.
yeah.
What advice would you give to our beautiful survivors watching today? If they're just coming to terms with
Yeah.
trauma, what would you what advice would you give?
Don't hold on to it. Yeah. Don't hold on to it. Let it go. Let it out. And it's always going to be there. It'll always be there. It's part of your life. It's what shaped you. But it doesn't have to define you, and it doesn't have to. You don't have to live with it all your life. You can move on from it, and just be aware. And just know that that's how and what happened. You know. I suppose I'm not quite there yet with myself with that one. I've come a long way, and I'm so much more comfortable, as you can see now, talking about it. Still brings up emotions so much, and I'll probably go into a wobbly for a few days after this, as I
Well,
call
I'm there.
it.
I'm here if you
Thank
need
you.
to reach out, Phill.
Yeah,
Look, just want to give you a little gift here because I think you might quite like this.
yeah,
And this is for our survivors watching. Hello, beautiful ones. We
yeah,
love you. Um,
yeah.
when you feel the emotion and it's coming through you and it's surfacing,
Mm,
how about if we looked at it as that's just validation? Thank you for validating me.
yeah, yeah. Even if you're going to do it for yourself.
That's what I'm saying. When it surfaces in you,
Yeah.
just think, yep, here it is. This just validates my truth, my reality.
Yes. I have a beautiful poem I wrote some time ago, which is very raw and very real about where I was at. It's called Mr. Jelly. And
Would you
it's, I
like
was, Yeah, yeah. I'd have to find it here, but I could maybe send it to you and you could put it up on
I'll
your.
put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be better. Um, I still find it hard to read it or read it out loud. It's still very emotional for me when I read it because I'm looking back at where I was back then,
Yeah.
and that was about a year before I got the payout. So it was coming up to this end of it, and I was just like, oh my God, it was the most frustrating time because it kept getting dragged out again. They know how to drag it out. That's for damn sure.
Well, because they don't want it to
Yeah,
end in a payment.
that's right.
But Phill, how did that feel for you actually being believed, being successful in court, and actually getting a payout? Did that go some way towards validation or vindication for you?
Yeah,
A
yeah,
little?
definitely. It made a big difference. It wasn't the answer.
No, no, no,
Never the answer.
no.
Uh, it made a big difference to my life, and for a short time, for 8 months, I had a hell of a good time. I just went and hired Ferraris, drove around, seeing all my friends over in Aussie, and seeing all the people.
Oh,
And I took all my friends that had supported me out to dinners and doing all sorts of crazy things. And yeah, I bought myself a home here in Motueka, and I've yeah, I've set myself up okay, and I'm you know, uh, it wasn't easy getting that money either.
no.
I honor the people that don't and haven't, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, and why I help so many other people around me in my life that come into my life, and I do everything, you know, because I see that they need help and I want to help them, and I've been through all these experiences that I can, and so it's yeah, I'm in a good place, definitely in my life for the first time in so many years. It's not funny, you know.
Oh,
And I just told my father recently. I said I'm the happiest I've ever been in 30 years, and I've been telling other people this too. That's a long time, to be unhappy and be broken, and then finally, and here's the worst part, right? When I first started to feel good, I thought there was something wrong. you know, I thought, am I dying or something? I went to the doctors, I went and got everything tested, and I was like, there's something wrong. And it
you're
was
yeah,
I was finding happiness. I was finding peace.
your beautiful soul was ready
Yeah,
to receive what you should always have had, which
yeah,
is the
yes,
the happiness and the peace of mind.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
yeah,
beautiful. Hey,
that's
Phil,
it.
and just as we're heading into close, are there any kind of thoughts you'd like to share before we start to close out today?
Um, well, yeah, for all those that are watching and haven't been through this, please share this. Please um, help other people wake up to this. And we really need everybody on board to make these change in the world. We really do, you know. And it's now or never. This is the most important issue in human history ever. Nothing else matters now. This has to be sorted. This has to be exposed. It has to be brought to the surface, and we need to get rid of these people out for good.
Yeah,
Never ever have these people in power ever again,
yeah.
because they're everywhere. And they have corrupted every institution on this planet. I tell you now.
Yep. All
And
right. Stay right there, Phil. Stay
yep,
right there. Don't sign off. But audience, what a gift. Don't you feel so humbled by this beautiful man and what he's experienced and what he's trying to do? Beautiful survivor. There are a couple of things Phil said that have really resonated with me, and probably going to steal them. So one is these pedophiles exist and have become more powerful because people refuse to believe they existed. So let that sink in. And the other thing he said, which was a wonderful little gold nugget for you beautiful survivors watching who maybe struggle at times, is don't hold on to it. So I think, lots of self-reflection, lots of thought, lots of love to you all. And as always, I see you, I stand beside you, and I believe you. Please do like, subscribe, and share this video.